Hello and welcome to the AEW Dynamite preview. I'm Michael Sidgwick, joined by fellow Dudley boy Michael Hamflett to discuss everything that's in store on the 250th edition of the show. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts where we preview and review Dynamite, Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0, pay-per-views, premium live events. We have wrestler interviews on occasion, roundtable discussions, and we host, probably not this week, a roundup of the week complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on wrestle culture. Michael Hamflett, 250 episodes of Dynamite. Not being funny, where has that time gone?
I know, it's wild, isn't it? 5 years now.
Almost 5 years.
A wrestling show it used to be, didn't it, that when Kurt Angle outlasted his WWE tenure with his TNA tenure, you're like, oh, well, time's moving too quickly, woo. But AEW isn't the new upstart promotion anymore. It's the established number two. People have been tracking Dynamite, passing Nitro, and we're getting ever closer. Like, Nitro didn't make it 6 years, did it? So we'll hit that soon enough.
I think Suit Williams from Voices of Wrestling does the weekly gimmick of the card comparisons. And it's, I mean, obviously the attendances are better. It was a different time. But it does throw things into perspective, what those shows look like. It's like, here's, Vince Russo versus whoever in 4 minutes. And it's the longest match on the card. Like, what were you doing there? So staying power, it's not hot. It continues to be not hot. Again, some of the upcoming attendances and gates are alarming, but broadly, in my opinion, it's the very best episodic TV show of all time. I think so. I firmly believe that. And this show, this card looks tits. Absolutely tits. Should we go straight into it? Or?
Yeah, well, hang on. Before we do, it's Blood and Guts next week.
I believe it is.
So they've had, obviously, last week and everything that happened there, which we'll talk about in a bit. Then this week with this potentially huge main event, and then Blood and Guts. And then what? We're 2 weeks out from Wembley. There's only one Dynamite left after that to Wembley.
I don't know. Right? I'm not a calendar.
They're stacking it up, though. That's what I'm saying. We normally have Wilborn on this, don't we? But they're stacking it up. I kind of admire lately. I didn't know that episode 250 was coming around, and we're kind of past the point
that's an additional AEW problem. They should have 6 weeks at least before the show. When 250 is coming up, it's going to be big, because they probably knew they had something in the back pocket for it.
But it does feel like at the moment that, I agree,
they're going for it.
It's not mega hot, but Dynamite, it does feel like they're actually chasing something again. They want the people to feel things. I'm buzzing about this Dynamite in the same way that I'm buzzing about them actually building a Wembley card this year. I feel like the biggest criticism from last year has been answered.
Yes.
This feels as not hot, but as hot as it possibly can be, heading into an event that they should be promoting as the biggest thing they do all year.
Yeah.
No matter what they might think about Chicago or Vegas or wherever their traditional audiences are based, there's going to be 40 to 50,000 people there. It's going to be the clips that they use. It's going to be the stage that they want to show you over and over and over again. And this feels night and day compared to last year. Yeah. And I think it's matched that on television as well, at least with Dynamite.
Absolutely. So we'll go straight into it with international title on the line, Will Ospreay versus Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Expectations are very, very high for this. I expect it will get quite a bit of time. We know from last year, and we know from his previous feuds, I think Cody is the outlier, that MJF will do the match on TV and you think, is it not happening at this upcoming pay-per-view? And then he will do the match. It will almost invariably be great. And then they will come up with some kind of hook or angle development that makes you almost forget you've just seen a lengthy pay-per-view match on TV for free and make you want to watch it and pay for it on the big show. The Garcia element continues to, it just feels a little bit like they're trying to make something happen that isn't organically happening. I do worry that there's going to be a three-way at Wembley, which I think is a bad idea. But as I said, there's precedent for MJF. He did it with Punk. He did it with Cole on the build to the same show last year. He's done it with Jericho, where the pay-per-view match is always how they arrived at this.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it on that basis. I expect MJF to get the title here. And for me, I've got one fantasy booking spot and one finish. Let's see if you agree with that. Fantasy booking spot, they're going to do the moves with the Z stalemate, where a lot of things get sort of attempted and then evaded and then attempted, evaded, evaded, attempted, whatever, and then I reckon Will Ospreay is going to do his trademark signature martial arts pose. MJF's going to do a version of it, do the wanker sign, then poke him in the eye.
Love it.
And I'm not just doing a Wilborn bit. I think that's something he could do.
Like, especially because he's got an Asai moonsault in him, hasn't he, MJF? So we know he can do the flip in the ring.
Oh, he can work Ospreay's match.
Yeah, he can do that like a lion salt type spot. So I would love to see that. I was going to ask you, like, I don't want to step on your dick with a finish prediction, but because I think MJF's winning the title too.
Yes.
I think he wins it tonight to then either hand it back to Ospreay at Wembley or at least the rematch. This hasn't made me doubt the Wembley card. I think it's still going to be.
Sean Ross Sapp seems adamant that it's MJF Ospreay and that Garcia's not going to factor into Wembley at least.
As you say, it's patterned with MJF. I think tonight is the night that, because I think the diamond ring will factor into it. Like, MJF has always protected the integrity of that weapon and absolutely brought it back to the fore when he turned on Daniel Garcia. So I think it stands to reason that he would use it here. I think it might involve Kyle Fletcher tonight. Whether or not Kyle Fletcher turns on Will Ospreay outright and we have to wait and see if he's acting on behalf of the Don Callis family, which we presume he is, or if he attempts to wrestle the ring away from MJF and there's a bit of a scuffle and then MJF ends up clocking Will Ospreay all the same, something like that. I think that's how MJF beats Will Ospreay. I don't think he beats him with what Ospreay is better at, pro wrestling. I think that's there for Ospreay at Wembley. But further to that, with it being Dynamite 250 and the wrestler involved here, is this the night Ricochet turns up?
Oh, potentially. I don't know of his contract expiration. I read or seem to recall reading that it was July. We are still midway through the month. Yeah. So I've got absolutely no idea. It's
a big Dynamite. Do you know what I mean? Like the sort of thing where if he was available,
you'd feel like they've got something big for 250. Maybe even, it is Tony Khan. Like, I'm not being funny. He might just sign a free agent for the sake of it, just to say he's done it on 250.
What we like with Team AEW's numbers for next week at the moment, it's Swerve and the Acclaim.
It's Swerve
on Mark Briscoe.
Swerve and Mark Briscoe. I don't think the Acclaimed are official, but I think at least two of them will do it. So there's a fifth. There is a fifth. So who the hell knows? My idea for the finish of MJF Ospreay. Did you see MJF's treadmill social media promo that he posted on X? So he's advancing and assisting the Will Ospreay arc, which was first touched upon with Don Callis, and then with Swerve, who made the same sort of storyline accusation of, you do not have a killer instinct, you don't have the bottle, you're not vicious enough, you're too nice, basically, and that will always prevent you from winning the big one or risk losing the big one. Not that the international title is the big one, but we can pretend it is for the sake of this chat. I think the diamond ring will come into play. I think that the referee will take it off MJF. When the referee's back is turned, MJF will kick Ospreay in the balls, and then because MJF on the treadmill echoed Swerve Strickland by saying, you do not have the killer instinct, you are not as sociopathic or as violent or whatever as I am, I think MJF hits a Tiger Driver.
Oh, yes, I like that. And then it almost teases Ospreay into doing it at Wembley for the bigger pop and the bigger moment.
And the thing about pro wrestling babyfaces is turnabout is fair play.
Yeah.
He won't be doing it at Wembley if in fact he does do it at Wembley because he's callous. I mean, the hidden blade is like, it's like a concussion shot, you know what I mean? Yeah. It is a bit ridiculous.
It'd be a revenge attack, wouldn't it?
And somebody else pointed out, like, in the same sort of program on which Ospreay sort of morally agonized over whether or not to do that. Darby Allin set Jack Perry on fire.
Yeah.
And people cheered for it as a babyface spot. So it is a bit ridiculous, but it would be turnabout as fair play with Will Ospreay. And that's maybe the way to get him to do it because people kind of want to see it.
Yeah.
So that's my idea for the finish.
I love that. No, I love that. That's isn't that in keeping with MJF as well? Because he's taken moves in the past as well, hasn't he? He did it against CM Punk. I think he did it in the Chris Jericho feud as well, where he's like in this idea that he can master anything and everything that there is to do in pro wrestling. It stands to reason that this MJF character would want to just be, I'm doing it because I'm better than you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to execute, but also I can. Like, it's not the fact that I'm just nasty enough. A lot of wrestlers wouldn't have the capability of Tiger driving you. I can.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one more thing that MJF is not afraid to just do that in a match. Is that he'll do stuff like that, but when it makes storyline sense, all the more reason to want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know what this match looks like, I think, and I know what the reaction to this match is going to be. It's going to be extremely exciting, very, very dramatic. You'd hope loud, though I don't think the gate looks particularly great. Great.
Where is it tonight?
I think it's in Little Cack, Arkansas, actually. Genuinely, I do. Double check while I chat here. So I think it's in Little Cack, Arkansas. And I don't think the gate looks particularly impressive. So you've got this sort of not ideal fusion of middling attendance and not the most rabid known market for that sort of atmosphere. So I think it's going to be an extremely exhilarating match that's going to verge on, for lack of a better term, indie-rific, very athletic, very exciting, very back and forth, a shootout. And a lot of people are going to rave about it, and there's going to be some contrarian voices who will say things along the lines of, doesn't MJF profess to not do this sort of style? That's exactly how it's
tired of that.
Yeah, that's how it's going to go. So I know what that match looks like. Before I do the segue, what's the...
3,084 tickets sold in Lil Cack, Arkansas.
Yeah, I probably could have guessed that. 3,000 again, is it?
in the Simmons Bank Arena. Simmons
Bank Arena, correct.
767 tickets left, so they'll probably get a sellout on walk-up.
Well,
but that's
you say sellout for what it's set up for.
For 3,500.
While I talk about the next thing, could you Wikipedia the arena capacity? Just I want to just know what kind of atmosphere we're looking at here. So I expect anyway what Ospreay versus MJF is going to look like. Title for title, Continental Champion Kazuchika Okada versus World Champion Swerve Strickland.
Oh, Jesus Christ, it's an 18,000 seat.
Cool, I thought it was fun.
Oh no.
What are they doing and why do they do this? What does Swerve Okada look like? I've got no idea. Now, I know that Okada can wrestle unbelievable matches with wrestlers who sort of operate within the same mode/genre as Swerve Strickland. And they're not like for like, but, hybrid, exciting, strike-based, high spots. I mean, Okada versus Kenny Omega is not a bad one to sort of draw from, or like the template of the dynamic. Ospreay and Okada and Ospreay, have had some absolutely fabulous matches like that as well. So as a like for like, I guess I do know what it looks like, and it looks like I'm going to see the face of God tonight, so that's good. I always like meeting him. But I still just don't know. This version of Okada, I mean, he just, boom, turned it on against Pac. But, he's doing his US TV run and all that entails.
Yeah, the ceiling is really high for this. Yeah. Swerve has been wrestling up to his level.
He has. His promo last week was so nothing. I was disappointed because I've been really enjoying his work and like gravitating towards him of late. And that was just a pretty nothing promo. So when he's coming off a cold week and really...
It was about placement that though, wasn't it? It was
about tone and delivery and content as well.
Do you think
it wasn't a great promo?
But there was nothing to grab onto there and then other than you've won a tournament, see at Wembley. Like, I appreciate that the great promos can make anything sound great.
That's the thing. Like, if you're a white, hot, incredible, on-form pro wrestler, everything you do every single week is awesome. I'm sorry, that is the standard.
The question I have about this one, because, like, I think this is going to be good without being great and maybe even fun without being good because of the Okada. He's the sort of X factor, isn't he? It's what Kazuchika Okada, a character you're going to get. These two are going to be in Blood and Guts next week. So this is very much, it's not match to build a match, but it's in service of Blood and Guts as much as it is this sort of TV dream match. How do they talk around Hangman Page here?
I think he interferes.
Well, this is it, right? So like he wants to get his hands on Swerve Strickland at all costs. He is now, for the time being, in the pocket of the elite because of that, really. Are they going? Well, is it going to be one of those? So we're not allowed interference in these title matches, are we? Like Okada singles matches. So he's banned for the benefit of that. But the second the bell rings, then Hangman Page can rush out and do what he wants.
Yeah.
But
is it 250 as well? You'd expect a big angle with this storyline that even if it's not going to culminate it all in, they want you to think that Page will do anything to get his hands on him.
Well, that's it.
And we're going to see it next week as well.
Do you take away from next week if you deliver it this week? Do you?
To be honest, it's so weird how they're like Tony Khan will say, no interference, absolutely verboten in these matches. I'll do what you want, everybody else. Do what you want all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll spin it that way, but the reason why I think Paige will interfere is that there's got to be a reason for this to exist. You don't want to pin either of these. It's very much, look, if you're being cynical about this now, hey, I'll hold my hands up if it doesn't go this way. This is a potentially great match, but also what I have designated the no good can come of this match.
They could, there's a very believable...
doubt they're pinning Okada just now.
And they could pin Swerve for in service of the match next week.
And then he wins blood and guts, and it's all a bit,
AEW are, on their day, really great, and we're going to get to some examples of this later on, really great at staggering out. So you've got like this multi-man next week. Everybody wants to look at Page versus Swerve. So that'll be Agent to perfection next week. But they're really good at Agent in the run-ins and the order of things, so that you've got this scene where there's war going on, and there's the Team AEW and there's the Elite, and everybody just look, where's Page? You're looking for those two bodies, and for whatever reason, they're kept separate. Like the run-in happens at the wrong, like the Bucks come down first, the Acclaimed like hit them off and so, and then it's, there's only Page and Swerve left, but for whatever reason, someone delays, someone hits, Page gets hit with an errant super kick or something like that. Oh, he was just going to get him, and like they're quite good at that. So I think I'd quite like to see them not like actually touch this week. They come as close as you could possibly get, but it's still saved for one more week. And if they use the amount of bodies out there, just build one last bridge between them. Yeah,
I'll be absolutely on the hook for this. Absolutely on the hook. I mean, it could be it should be an absolutely incredible match, the second of the night, but we'll see. I just worry a little bit about it. Here's something, right? So there's another title match. So that's good for your copy, isn't it?
Yeah.
TBS title on the line. The Cartman Land Open Challenge of You Can Come to Dr. Britt Baker, Mercedes Moné.
And what a throwback this is, by the way.
It's a really good throwback, some lovely continuity here, and I think they realistically did. They didn't do Nyla Rose a disservice by keeping it sort of like open and the mystery, because I think what's happened is that, well, I certainly myself, unfairly or otherwise, drew parallels between, Mercedes Moné is feuding with Dr. Britt Baker. Dr. Britt Baker is an associate of Jamie Hayter, who Fightful Select last week reported is potentially inching closer to a return, because apparently certain members of the women's division have been sounded out about, would you like to work with her? We're sort of potentially, crafting a return arc. And then I thought, open challenge, Dynamite 250, and a way to build Moné versus Baker. I just thought it had Jamie Hayter written all over it. And I think if that was a thing and not just me, maybe they're trying to get in front of it and saying it, no, it's Nyla Rose.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's like it's not going to be Jamie Hayter, or it's not going to be Natalia. I know she's resigned, but it's not going to be this,
Nyla Rose doesn't deserve the disappointment.
Exactly.
She doesn't deserve that.
So I'm glad they've got in front of it, and two, it's just a really nice nod to the woman who is part of the first ever Dynamite women's title match. Is now, and that was probably the highlight of the show, other than the closing angle, is now going to challenge for it again. Really nice. AEW does a great job. So let's do it too much. Frankly, in my opinion, with this continuity, and they're very, very strict with it. Too strict, if anything. But no, this is really nice. It's a nice nod. And honestly, Mercedes Moné has got that sort of, it's weird to describe it as such because she was on the scene well before him, but she's got that Darby Allin quality of anyone big versus Moné is always a great time. And she's one of the more diminutive and slight wrestlers in that women's division, and women's wrestling, full stop. Her against Nyla Rose, you could see, I want to see a succession of those, oh my God, she's dead bumps.
Yeah.
I want to see a lot of, oh my God, she is dead bumps. Like that Nyla Rose climbing up the top turnbuckle when Mercedes Moné is draped belly first, stomach first, over that top rope, that diving knee drop.
Oh, yeah.
What is Mercedes Moné going to look like bumping for that?
Ba-ba boss.
Yeah.
It's not, the callback to Dynamite #1, it's not just Nyla Rose in a singles title match. The physical chemistry is going to be similar. I know Mercedes Moné is a bit bigger than Rio because everybody's a bit bigger than Rio, but the fundamental story will be the same here, and Nyla Rose is incredible in that environment. And I think
much better doing that sort of match than I've seen. She's had matches against sort of similar-sized opponents that are never quite as good. She was born to play a certain role, and then she's going to enact it tonight.
I just expect this to be really heated. I think the chemistry is going to be great. I think what Nyla Rose offers when she does get these opportunities is like loads of patter, and it's Mercedes Moné. Like, there are a lot of things that she can aim for when she gets that camera, and she can take the piss, and I think she's going to be brilliant in that setting. It's a good win. It's a statement win for Mercedes Moné is going to retain. It's a statement win for Mercedes Moné. I don't mind the obvious winner, obvious loser booking here, because it's good to see her on TV getting reps as the champion. And you could even tie it to, and I guess we'll see how this plays out, you could even tie it to the story that they're like flirting with Britt Baker, that just Britt Baker ultimately doesn't really believe that Mercedes Moné deserves all this, and Mercedes Moné doesn't care. Like, she's coming here because she's the big star. She will beat all of your old faves anyway, but that's not what she's here to do. She's here to be the massive star. So there's Nyla Rose being part of that, and if there are maybe another couple of other challenges on the way, or Britt Baker, they flip it, and Britt Baker has to beat like one of the new up-and-comers as part of her own TV build. I think it's quite nice booking for the Fouad. It's not just a match to have this match.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Baker will have a match next week, so it should be a selling point. Obviously, you want to shake off ring rust. I know it's only one match, but Blood and Guts is a big one. I would have Britt Baker's return next week. I wouldn't wait until Wembley.
Smaller card, isn't it, traditionally, match-wise?
Yeah, so I think it needs another selling point. But we'll see. We'll absolutely see about that. Penultimate. No, that's wrong. Another talking point. It's Dynamite 250. Yeah. I would say for about 215 of those Dynamites, Chris Jericho has been uneven. There's a few great runs in there. So the other, 35 have been great?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Dynamite. Wouldn't be Dynamite without Chris Jericho, would it? And that's
Titanic
why.
Lady. It's been 249 Wednesdays. Of Chris Jericho.
And we are going to get a segment of The Learning Tree with Chris Jericho. He's going to, hi guys, you're welcome. You're welcome for all of this.
Yeah.
That sort of deal. And then, I don't know, Hook again?
I want to apologise. I should have wrote down who this was. Did you see the pitch for Wembley and Chris Jericho? And them just doing Taz, Jerry Lawler from One Night Stand 2006. If he's physically able.
He's never doing it. He is having a minimum of 15 minutes in that ring at Wembley Stadium. A minimum.
For what? For who and against who? Do you know, it's...
Well, so what about the learning tree of Jericho, Brian Keith, and Big Bill versus Hook, Katsuyori Shibata, and Taz, because Joe can't... I don't think Joe can do it because he's off to film Twisted Metal.
Right.
Which I think includes filming, albeit with breaks, in October.
That sucked ass last week, didn't it? Stupid forklift wall thing.
I quite liked it.
Did you?
It's because he went into oblivion, you see.
Oh, he just disappeared from view?
Yes, because obviously that wall was about as thin as Chris Jericho's skin. But he couldn't see what was on the other side.
That's true.
So I was like, I love oblivion bumps.
Yeah.
Like, where's he gone?
I like it when they shoot it sometimes, where somebody falls off the edge of the ring and it's like they're falling off the edge
Michael
of the world.
Cole did that once in 1999.
Yeah.
I was like, where have you gone? He's just gone into oblivion. That's fantastic. Versus Taz.
All right. Yeah,
Taz can just stand on the apron. Jericho can sort of be cocky in front of him. And then Self-Fear, when he gets tagged in, steps through the ropes. Jericho, Taz can laugh at him, then tag back out. All he can do is a Taz mission. We know this. I mean, he can't even do that. He's got any shoulders.
No.
So maybe this is just completely deranged fantasy booking. But that's what Jericho does. He deranges me into talking about anything that he is scheduled to do on television.
What about... I got a pitch for you. It's terrible. Want to hear it? Jericho is on Dynamite 250 talking about how, yes, thank me for this. This is all because of me. 5 years of AEW, 258 episodes of Dynamite. Where would we be without Chris Jericho? There's nobody on this roster that was there from the beginning quite like Chris Jericho. And the Boring Combat Club, so that's Moxley, Yuta, and Claudio, because Brian's in the main event, and there's your 3-on-3 at Wembley, and they make it Anarchy in the Arena because it cheats, basically. Jericho's like, well, I need something hot. Nobody's going to want to watch this otherwise. I got Ospreay last year and I got to be Freddie Mercury.
So some kind of,
because they got now happening.
John Moxley, it was weird, right? He's got nothing going on. I don't think anyone misses him. I think everyone's kind of worked out. See, stop caring.
Yeah.
I think it's a palpable feeling.
It's Wembo, isn't it?
And I was making this point to Wilborn when you were off. and it's so staggering how much he's kind of very slowly fallen. Post brawl out, he gives you the promo, and he wants the ball.
Yeah.
He hasn't looked like he's wanted the ball in quite some time, for starters. 2, there was this big discussion about, is it the Elite without, is it AEW without the E, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that obviously one day it has to be, but I argued that without the closure, it can't be. At some point, Kenny Omega's, you want AEW to be around forever. At some point, there's going to have to be no E in AEW. That's fine, but you needed the closure at the time for it to feel whole.
Yeah.
They could have done another year or 2 and then, right, we're going. But it still felt like AEW without Cody, for example, you know? But at the time, what I'm getting at in my long-winded way is, who needs the Elite? Jon Moxley is the heart and soul of this promotion. Remember that take?
Yep.
And it was not remotely untrue.
Yeah.
How far away is Jon Moxley from feeling like the heart and soul of this?
Well, I think so much of that was because in Brawl Out, what happened was the locker room door had been kicked open. I don't mean on Larry's head. I mean, like, for all of us to see. So then you're not just watching the characters on television, you're thinking about what they do behind the scenes. So when Jon Moxley comes out and cuts that incredible promo on that Dynamite, you're watching him, yes, be Jon Moxley the character, but also like be speaking on behalf of the locker room. He will lead out of this crisis. The same can be said now, but opposite. He doesn't feel like he's that fussed about being Jon Moxley on screen or off. You know, like that match, the Josh Barnett one, covered in blood. That's the iconic Jon Moxley visual of 2024.
That's just what he seems to want to do.
Not that he was IWGP champion in a underwhelming run, truthfully.
That was crap.
Yeah, like
the match have been those sucked ass.
Yes, like not anything he's done.
I don't feel good about saying this.
No, but it's okay. If, like we say, Bookers have
we were
runs all
way
the time.
too old to hero worship Jon Moxley to the extent that we did in 2020.
Yes, we were very, very tired dads, and we needed a dad too, and that man was Jon Moxley. Yeah. Like, it's just, I think it's okay for wrestlers to have runs in the same way Bookers do, and especially now. Like, is this not one of the great benefits of the 2 mainstream companies? I'm not suggesting, like, I would love Jon Moxley to go back to WWE as much as anybody.
You always want everyone to go to WWE, don't you?
There's always one
Kenny
more
Omega should do it, the Young Bucks should do it, Jon Moxley should do it.
And they still should. Like, there's always a Fed run. But especially now, like, especially like that feeling that a bunch of people had at WrestleMania for a split second. Wait a minute. Excuse me? And that was the most anybody who's been excited about Jon Moxley in a while, on the very idea that, is he just going to walk down the steps? What's going on here? Like, no, but Shield stuff, it would be him and Roman and Seth now is a different level, isn't it? It would be enormous.
Different gravy.
But in the same way that, like, you want Cody to jump back one day. That's where we're at. The big stars can make the moves just as much as the mid-card guys now. So, but I don't know if that's what he wants. It's hard to discern what he wants. Because for the longest time, it felt like AEW was what he wanted.
Yeah.
It was given kind of... It does reflect us in a way, because like we've talked about how your point about Tony Khan giving AEW fans everything, he's given a lot of his wrestlers everything as well.
Yeah, he's given them like all their sort of nerdy pursuit hobby runs. He did it with FTR,
Danielson,
you know, Moxley.
Like, and sometimes it feels at the expense of the program you're watching, because you're watching him do something for the real life person instead, which is nice and admirable, but it clashes, doesn't it?
He's been doing it with Moxley for way too long.
So
way too long.
Possibly a boring 6-man for Wembley setup here.
Great. Well, I look forward to that, to be fair. I mean, might set each other on fire and junk like that.
That's true. Yeah, Jericho and his fireballs.
Loves his fireballs.
He does.
Loves his fireballs.
He always is.
Right. The last thing scheduled, we shouldn't point out we're recording this just close to midday UK time. Actually, so what I was going to say is there's probably one more match, potentially even 2, that he might just drop Tony Khan, that is, pronoun boy. As a last second, it's $2.50, come and watch it. Here's another incentive. I would be stunned and disappointed if there isn't some kind of gonzo 6, 8, or 10-man tag. And no blood and guts is next week.
Rich history.
There's an actual rich history that they don't have to lie about in terms of, we're just going to do something mental. Just absolute moves, overlapping characters. Gives 10-man. Some kind of 10-man. Like Orange Cassidy should be on the show.
I was going to say Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin stuck out to me. Darby Allin returned last week in that weird backstage thing, didn't he? But like, them 2 were the ones that really stuck out that should probably feature in some
Bucks, Jack Perry on one side. Orange Darby. I was going to say they have history, but Orange Cassidy's got history with everyone. So Bucks Then some kind of weird, like, it's the one time.
They've got Ishii for the summer, and he could be the last guy in Blood and Guts next week.
Ishii, Darby, and Orange. And usually, I'm like, not another one with these sort of super groups, but it's 250 Dynamite.
Yeah.
I want something a bit nuts to look at.
Ones as well.
Yeah, I want something a little bit only in AEW.
Yeah.
That flavour, I want that. Ishii, Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, maybe the Acclaimed. No,
Yeah.
Young Bucks,
Jack Perry,
Christian
Cage and Killswitch.
something like that.
And then Christian and Jack Perry have got to be on the apron for and there's a little bit of a...
Ooh, and then the Bucks are kind of aligned with Christian Cage a bit. Hey.
That's all the big names, and that's why you got them all on there, aren't you? Like,
I think Orange Cassidy should be on the show.
Yeah, I agree.
I really think he should be on this show. Anyway, that was just a little thought that popped into my head. I might tweet it later for some numbers. Let's not go into the angle from last week just yet, because we've got a little sort of wider discussion. Mariah May speaks tonight after the events of last week. What do you think she's going to say?
She's going to lay out that all of this was fairly part of the plan. What I've loved about, well, last week's Dynamite, it really stuck out, but they've definitely been doing it before Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door just made it a bit too tricky. A bunch of wrestlers couldn't have put over Wembley enough last week. Wembley, that stage, that show, biggest thing they can do in their career. There was a link between a bunch of wrestlers that missed it through injury, so like your Danielson wanted to win the tournament. The kind of spectre of Jamie Hayter, because she missed it as well, obviously. Pac was another one that said he wasn't. He was injured last year, or he just missed a card?
Must have been injured.
But he wanted to be on it this year.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to turn it around to get to All In.
I want Takeshita, by the way. Have I said that on these podcasts before?
Pac and Takeshita.
Have I said that? I think I might have said it about 10 friggin' times.
He's not G1 in, is he? Is there an overlap there? Might not, if Takeshita's busy in Nuge.
Pac versus someone.
Yeah. But Mariah May arrived in October last year and mentioned immediately Toni Storm, and it was like work and shoot, wasn't it? Because it was like, followed her in Stardom, and now we'll follow her to AEW, and then they can get on with the storyline. But there was always this like shoot element as well, where it was true. I saw last year, and I saw in my...
You saw the vision?
Yeah, in my home country.
Because you've seen All About Eve.
Yeah. Where I need to be.
You've seen All About Eve?
I've never watched it.
I've never watched it.
I didn't like hashtag do the work for this story. I just read people's Twitter threads.
I've told you my thing about old films, haven't I?
What's that?
I'm just depressed by them.
What, in just...
I don't know if it was like a thing from childhood where if I didn't get my way for once and there was like something like really old on TV.
Like a Channel 4 afternoon film or something.
Yeah, I've got this weird thing. I'm such a Philistine, but like I'd see something about like, if it's just too old.
Yeah.
I've watched 12 Angry Men, the original.
Class.
Really, really
To Kill a
great.
Mockingbird, the original's great.
I haven't seen that. I'm sorry. I've got this thing about... So I've never watched All About Eve on that basis.
How are you at? Like, you're an action movie guy. Where are you at with like Steve McQueen stuff? Is he
too old. But the oldest I've gone...
Ewan Patterson's like...
Oh, no, his head's going to fall off. I'm trying to get a little bit more cultured. The oldest I've gone... I've never gone Citizen Kane. Way too old. 12 Angry Men, the original. Touch of Evil.
Never seen that.
Orson Welles. Like really, really influential. There's like a shot at the start that is like sort of an event horizon for cinema, basically. A big bang for everything that followed. Rio Bravo's quite old.
Do you like Hitchcock?
Psycho was good.
Psycho and the Birds. Scary. Scary birds.
Scary.
Hitting that phone box. Mariah May, a year, speaking of hitting the phone box, I saw that red phone box on that bloody stage. No, Wembley, there it was. And she's English, and she's thought, right, that's the next move, and you're actually going to make this easy for me. You're a delusional, like, fool. And I wrestled Toni Storm, and I did know Toni Storm inside and out. It wasn't hard for me to be Toni Storm for 6 months at her bosom, but this was always the goal, and I complete it. I like when a heel does something as horrible and heinous as last week's attack, and then to them makes it a day at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something extra evil
like
about...
unconscionable.
Yeah. And I think she can just tie it to last year's Wembley and say, well, that was my destination, that was my goal. And as we went along, I saw the ways in which to do it. And plenty of other people did too. But you were too deluded and in your own head and in your own world to see it. And like what I love about, not to step on our own dicks in a couple of minutes, the heel babyface line is clear. And that's always been a bit of an issue with these Tony Storm stories. So you can go full tilt with Mariah May as the heel this week. It's a big pressure spot because, like, I know, like we do Ladies' Night and stuff, it's still only the one match, but this is bigger than the match. This is the biggest thing in the company right now. And you're kind of rooting for this follow-up to go as well as the delivery of the angle last week. Yeah. So I think the audience will be with it as well. She's the hottest heel on the show right now. Yeah. And I just want to see that capitalised upon.
Well, we're going to get into it. Last week, Michael Hamflett.
Yes.
Mariah May turned on Toni Storm. Now, we weren't available in the office to discuss it, so we're going to right now lavish praise all over this angle, talk about it in depth, and then we're going to rank where it sits in the canon of greatest AEW angles ever. You have been desperate to talk about it for a full week. Let's go.
Well, I thought it was one of the best ever as I was watching it. They have, it's like, I don't want to give faint praise to these two. I want to give faint praise to AEW as a part of giving bigger praise to these two. They've booked a woman. They've booked a woman in Mariah May. Like, well, it's been 5 years from scratch. This was the play. And yes, there was points where, because the heel and babyface dynamic did get a bit switched, you were thinking, is this going to be Toni Storm turned on Mariah? There was a couple of weeks with the teasers of the throwing the towel in, and was she intimidated by her? And look, they can still play with that now.
Yeah, but it will still scan to Toni Storm as, no, I really bonded with you and looked after you and were protective over you, so that's why I did it. And then Mariah May can interpret it as, no, you saw me coming as a threat and all the rest of it.
It was patronising for you to think that I couldn't hang, basically. And like Mina Shirakawa now is a sort of as a background player in all of this is kind of inspired, because the last thing we saw was her acting as a bonding agent between all three of them, ultimately, that left Mariah and Tony's relationship as strong as it has ever been. And when's the best time to do it?
Yes.
When the relationship has never looked stronger. So the timing and the execution couldn't have been any better. I've watched this clip now like hundreds of times, as will everybody watching this podcast. And even when Willow Nightingale goes to shake Mariah May's hand, you can see the glint, the evil glint in Mariah May's eye. Yeah, I'll shake your hand, but I've got what I needed now. Time to pull the trigger. And again, the framing of it, because we're a week late, everybody's already had all the takes, and that's fine. But the pullback and reveal of the Wembley graphic as Mariah May stood over Toni Storm was cinema. Yeah. It was just stunning, which, for this Toni Storm character is what it needs to be. I thought Luther's involvement was really quite sweet. Like, for him to try and limply and listlessly defend
everyone in AEW gets a moment.
Yeah, only to get
even Matt Hardy got Stadium Stampede. Every single wrestler in AEW has had something where it's like, you know what, that was class.
We've spotted,
Luther
by the way,
got one.
There is now a new cheat in wrestling. Now we always said the table is a great cheat because of the noise. It's more than that. Table spot off a ramp got Jay and Jimmy out of trouble at WrestleMania, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, there's Luther's like deathmatch moment is getting a table spot off a ramp. But it was just super effective because you needed that one big visual that was almost comedic in order to keep Tony and Mariah's moment super mega serious. It's one of the biggest matches on All In. It made an argument last week for main event at Wembley. It won't. It's AEW, and ultimately they're setting up certain things to main event Wembley. But the Owen Hart tournament and the stipulation that came with that from the very beginning was designed to set up something big time. And this is absolutely the biggest women's match AEW will ever promote on a show where they're promoting Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker.
I think we've had a few of those. Money versus Willow Nightingale got there in the end.
Yeah, but this other match at Wembley is like the two big names, but now it cannot compete with the story.
I want to see it try.
Well, yeah,
that's the thing.
You create in that Shark Tank environment, which you should, because the women have probably felt like they've been swimming in around that Shark Tank for ages with no actual opportunity to make the best of what they're accomplishing from these limited spots. Not now. Like, there is an obvious right now 1 and 1A of what's the bigger match at Wembley, and you've got the Blood Feud versus the Two Stars. And both
Blood Feud versus Box Office.
Yeah, that's like Wembley should have it. A wrestling company should have it. It should have this range, and it's great because they're so separate from one another. You don't need a heavy heat Britt Baker, Mercedes Moné angle, because this is going to be the one with all the heat. You probably get one, but this has got all the heat now.
What a 1-2 punch, by the way, to do the Mercedes Britt segment and then a week later do this.
Yeah,
very much a look at what our women's division is. It's actually awesome.
Probably going back a couple of years now, when John Moxley was bleeding a lot, and
it was awesome.
there was a lot of people.
You should never stop doing it.
Like a number of people that I'm not as big a fan of blood in wrestling as you are, but I understand the value of blood. So it was more the fact that the more that he bleeds, the less that it feels impactful. Women in wrestling just simply aren't permitted to bleed as much, and that's why there is a rich history in AEW. It's of women's hardcore matches where you've got, like, I'm thinking of like a Ruby Soho or a Willow Nightingale or
the Bunny,
Tay Conti, these iconic images, and Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, of course, the most iconic women's match in AEW to date is about them bleeding and being permitted, I guess, to get a lot of the things that the men get all the time. Yeah. Where that is actually a benefit and where these restrictions have actually accidentally been a benefit is just
discipline is key as a creative tool.
It's how impactful it was last week. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily been disciplined for the right reasons. I just think sometimes the women aren't.
Yeah, that's a byproduct of it. Yeah,
but what you get as a result is something as powerful as last week, a visual as powerful, something that felt as cruel as it did violent. It wasn't violent for violence sake. Straight away you see the symbolism of the shoe, but it serves as a weapon. Like high heel shoe used to be a weapon that was mocked, because Hogan and Savage were running around with it in WCW. Not now. Like AEW have made the high heel shoe just as serious as a barbed wire baseball bat because context is everything. This was magic. This was an all-timer. And like, not just for AEW, pro wrestling. Yeah. Like, you knew it when you were watching it. You could feel like electricity running through your veins. You could feel all that. It was magic.
What I thought was particularly impressive about it is Mariah May and Toni Storm. Like, the storyline's been plotted. Yes, there's some issues with the babyface heel alignment, dynamic, whatever, which got in the way of certain builds and all the rest of it. But as a story between these two characters, it's been so well plotted. But plotting can only take you so far. If the wrestlers do not have chemistry, it's not going to be that great. But Tony Khan has always been great at that, of identifying who would be good to wrestle or team with whom, all the rest of it. We probably should have seen it coming because it's been going on a long time. There is a huge show in Wembley with the English Mariah May sort of hovering around it. And then it was in the main event as well. Angle alert klaxon should have been blaring. Main event, something's going on here.
What's so nice about that, though? It made sense in the fiction of AEW that you open Dynamite with Danielson Page because they're known for going long.
Yeah.
So I didn't once think, they've done that first because that's what these two do.
And this is the detail-oriented company that elevates everything when it's absolutely on fire. I sort of expected and demanded Paige Danielson to go that long because it would be, if that just started at like 140, you'd think that takes away from the story.
It's not real feeling, is it?
That would, from the story they've built. But the Angle Alert klaxon didn't blare last week, which I thought was such a testament to the chemistry that they've developed as a unit, that you do think it's we know it's going to turn. It's all about Mariah. They've said from day one, not only is it how wrestling just functions generally, but they've said all along, we're doing All About Even. This is the story, so just strap in for it. So I thought it was such a testament to them that they'd done it. And I see blood angles all the time. You see turns all the time. One of the reasons that this was elevated above so much else, so much other fare that we've seen recently, is that I'm callous to a lot of pro wrestling in general, certainly a lot of pro wrestling violence in turns. Like I've argued pretentiously that we are post everything and it's really hard for a lot to get traction.
Yeah.
I rarely experience that feeling of that's too far. That is too far. The way that heel was just getting jammed dangerously near Toni Storm's eye, I was like, that eye's coming out.
She found like you always use the Austin bedpan thing. She found a contact sweet spot with the rest of the shoe because the noise of the shoe hitting the body, and it wasn't the heel, obviously. But the noise of the shoe hitting the body was so loud. It was almost visceral, like it's a very different thing. But one of our favorite angles, we talk about it relentlessly, is the Cobra Savage, Jake Roberts, 1991. There was that feeling of that thing is not meant to be there. Yeah. Like that heel is not meant to be so close to her eye. And obviously the blood, like it's the illusion, isn't it? She's obviously worked it very well. Toni Storm still has eyes. Yeah. But it's like, no, it's getting too close. It was actually transgressive, unconscionable, all of those things that make a heavy heat angle an angle. And just the whole, absolutely no one has ever said
and give me some receipts, but they didn't get traction even if one person has tweeted it. No one's ever said, Penny's dropped, she's going to attack her with a shoe at one point.
Yeah.
Watch for the shoe. That's AEW, goddammit.
Tony Storm gets colour.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like all the various ways in which...
Black and white, Tony, when you get, oh, you want colour, do you? Well, there it is. Watch out for the shoe. I mean, that's AEW. I pretentiously refer and allude to Raymond goddamn Carver all the time, but that's what people talk about when they talk about AEW.
I tweeted something like that last week in that I don't think we are harsh in a lot of people do. I don't think we're harsh in our criticisms of AEW, but I think we're very fair about measuring, right, it's 2024 has been loads better than 2023, for example. But where does it stack up against like 2021 or 2020 or even 2022? But I think last week a lot of people were shaken awoke by AEW. When I've been praising it, it really hasn't been up to much because that's what it feels like. That angle last week I think it's like the best moment of AEW's year, for example. Yeah. And there's been a lot of good stuff and a lot of stuff to praise. And week on week, we've been tracking, like, I think Dynamite's been a pretty great show the last month and a half. Yeah. Once they got Forbidden Door out the way, especially, but even before that, you could tell they were building like something bigger beyond Forbidden Door with the characters that weren't related to New Japan or CMLL. And I just felt last week that should remind people of what it is that people are chasing with AEW. What the dragon that they are chasing is that not, it was pretty solid. Yeah, it's back on track. I think it's good. There's a lot of that in AEW, but...
You can't do anything like this every single week,
no,
obviously.
Of course you can't. But you should already be... There should be characters on screen right now in stories within AEW that are where Mariah and Tony were in January, let's say. There should always be that next thing that that's when you talk about the plotting. Again, a plot is only a plot until there's a big angle or a big development that makes the difference in like elevating it into being something you could put on a pay-per-view. But we should be watching those now.
Yeah.
We should be watching those characters getting plotted out. MJF's return, I would say, is a good example of that currently. Where he is at is as a result of some solid return plotting followed by a big angle with Daniel Garcia, and now we're on the road to Wembley. Characters up and down the roster should be at the earlier stage of their stories because we've just seen Tony Storm and Mariah May and been given an example of what it is to believe in the company still. So if you want to trust the process again, the wrestlers that we've just talked about on this card, or the wrestlers wrestling in seemingly not meaningless, but in fixtures, in run-of-the-mill matches, no, be encouraged to look for stuff again. Be encouraged to look for why that wrestler is interacting with that one, or what it is they're doing, or what move they've just added, who they might wrestle down the line. Because that's what we were encouraged to do every week, all the time. Yeah. When AEW first launched, that feeling was like, once every probably 4 weeks, because there were more wrestlers reaching the apex where it was time to do the big angle or something like that. You know?
Absolutely. So it could very well be the best angle that they've ever done. We're going to go through some honorable mentions. Might not even reach a conclusion, but we just want to be nerds and talk about it because it's good to be passionate about it. And I thought it was a good talking point. When we talk about AEW being, you're so much better than my fantasy booking. You are so much better. You're ahead of me. You're working me. You're manipulating my emotions. You are doing feats of narrative ingenuity that I'm nerdy enough to stand up and applaud in my living room while I watch it. It's a pretty high bar, but hey, I'm not the one who set it. AEW are the ones who set it. So when we talk about that, MJF revealing, I'm a snake, old man, and like CM Punk is such an incredible bleeder to begin with. The Dailies plays before Revolution 2022 when he realizes, no, I've just manipulated you one more time. Not only did you still hold on to the fact that, can MJF be redeemed as a babyface? Yes, it didn't really work, but it was still a really intelligent way of just illuminating. Maybe it was inconceivable that MJF could ever one day be a babyface. And not only did you do that, you got the twist to heat up the match as if it needed any more.
It was an angle a week.
It was just unbelievable. But when it's that penny drop of, oh, you're so much better than me. And I love being manipulated emotionally by a wrestling promoter. That's why you get into it. I'm a snake, old man. It's like, you motherfucker. Because you've been saying the whole time, I'm the heir to your throne. You're not the best heel of the 21st century. You're not the time traveler who can get earnest heat in this calloused sort of blurred lines era that we live in. No, Punk, it's me. I thought that was absolutely tremendous. That might be the apex, realistically.
It was everything about that incredible story, like crystal, like he rips off he's in the white suit, obviously for the blood, but he rips off and he's got the picture that started it all, and he just smears
the blood on it,
Punk's blood across it, and MJF's in his little green top, and it's the same green as the suit the first time they met, and Punk rejected the handshake. And it's like, ties all the way back. He's called himself a super fan that was let down by Punk. How does he prove he's a super fan? Literally recites his lines from when Punk was last in Ring of Honor. It was the whole story.
It was just unbelievable.
Blood is in with the diamond ring, which only 2 weeks before Wardlow giving them the back pass and would factor into the finish.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was 100% flawless, perfect, everything. Like it was because it was the angle after MJF had sort of spoken very candidly and emotionally about the treatment he received at school and why CM Punk was an outlet. And you were thinking, like, what do they do next week to heat this up? Like, what? This is such a strange pivot.
Because he didn't want to fight him in the dog collar, did he? Like, he didn't want to do it. He was trying to, like, Punk had lost the first match, so offered him the dog collar. And then MJF was like, right.
Yeah.
Where now? And that's where
Absolutely unbelievable. The Cody Lashes segment, we'll speak on Wilborn's behalf. That was just a case study in how to build anticipation in a match, how to make you want to see a goodie beat the baddie.
Yeah.
A total case study. It was measured to perfection. Wardlow was such a great supporting character. I mean, Wilborn loved the little, like, I've seen Hosses, very recklessly, like, nearly injure jobbers. I've seen Hosses do like these really cool sort of like move combinations against jobbers and squash matches. Rarely ever been so intimidated by a monster when Wardlow just with a little tiny movement of his fingers was like, I'll have that. And he quite literally followed through with the whip as well.
That was where a lot of the Batista comparisons started, I think. Because Batista was good for his in the pre-turn days with Evolution.
And what a lofty earned comparison that was.
I think it was one of the first times you saw some acting. That was like, I remember that vividly. NXT was getting his ass handed to it by then. I wasn't even the biggest Cody guy. NXT didn't have anything like that in its locker. It did not.
No, it had no angles. It had no spark.
We could have debated like what made like good wrestling TV or what stars we wanted to watch or anything like that. This awful heel whipping a guy 10 times in like something that had become a bit of a cliche because of the like replaying of the Tommy Dreamer Sandman Kane angle, for example.
They waited long enough to do it though.
To put it on television and to not shy away from the drama of it and how long that kind of stuff takes, to donate the TV time to it. I just remember watching it and thinking, well, like NXT simply would not do that.
It couldn't.
And AEW might have been, obviously by then there was simply no comparison with WWE's main roster, but even the stuff that you might like on NXT, they haven't got one of them in them. They just haven't.
It was so bold as well, because I remember the chat leading up to it was like, Cody is a babyface. He can't do that. Like, he just can't. It's like, it's really damaging to him.
Yeah, it makes him look weak.
But like, and they just went and did it. It was absolutely incredible. In the same time period, February 2020, God damn it. Not so much an angle, but a promo segment, but an angle ultimately is something that exists to build interest in a match. The Elite sit down, where, I'm sorry, this is going to offend your World Wrestling Federation heart, where they basically took not the premise, but the philosophy of Brett versus Owen of, I can kind of see it both their ways.
Yeah.
They sort of took that and ran with it, that Elite sit down ahead of the Elite Explode at Revolution 2020, where Kenny Omega's like, oh, we kind of fluked it. I don't know how we've done this. And Hangman Page is like, no, we're the best. He's like, oh, well, you're the best tag team in the world. And then it finally comes out where Matt Jackson as he went by at the time, was like, you're a jobber in Ring of Honor, mate. And it was like, oh, get him, Hangman. They just plotted this wonderful thing where it was like, Page is a hero. Page is a hero. Yes, he's a bit distant and a bit aloof and he'd rather drink. And he's behaving in a way that would half indicates it was as clever as it used to think it was, this Elite stuff.
Yeah.
The idea of he's a bit aloof, maybe he should just join in, and he's drinking and all the rest of it. But then Matt Jackson was basically, this made you week upon week go, Page is the guy. Page is the guy. Page is the hero. Page is the babyface. And that you're a jobber of Ring of Honor. You should be grateful that we let you join this sort of thing. It was like, get him at him.
It was a 3-on-1 in the room.
I know.
It didn't feel nice.
Really uncomfortable. And, I think the Young Bucks are the best tag team of all time. And yet, because like nuance is able to exist, I think Matt Jackson in particular can really overact. And I don't think that's a hot take. He was unbelievable here. Like, absolutely unbelievable. 2 more very quickly, because I know you've got some that you want to nerd out over as well. Just the Full Gear 2019 Go Home Brawl, where Matt Jackson's like, I don't have to stand here. This is not a TV show. It is, but it isn't. And the way they just, like the way that they previewed the entire card without once feeling like, oh, you know, when there's a ladder match, it's like, where's this ladder come from? Oh, there's a ladder match on Sunday. It should have been way more contrived to go, oh, he's coming out and he's feuding with him. Oh, it's like they tied everything together so perfectly. That to me was the best illustration of the ultimate benefit that AEW had, which no promotion will ever have again, of, right, we've got time to actually plan this. We have got an off-season to thread every little tiny wonderful thing together.
A week 1 to a pay-per-view or whatever after.
Yeah.
Was that around the time as well where Hangman Page wasn't coming to make the save, so they were already planting the seed? Like, we were supposed to boo him. Why is he not helping the Elite? Come on, Hanger.
Yeah.
And that's the first point at which you kind of, the separation was being made apparent because he lost his title shot. And then as that gets us to Revolution, where by this point it's starting to flip a little bit.
Yeah.
You've, up to this point, felt like the Elite were kind of justified in their own distance from Hangman.
Yeah.
Don't be dickheads about it, though.
Yeah.
That was where it started to pivot, wasn't it? Yeah.
And one more, there's probably loads more, but for the sake of brevity, I know it wasn't Dynamite, but it's the best angles in AEW history. This was Rampage of all shows, the Eddie Kingston CM Punk face-off.
Oh my God.
Like,
oh my God.
I've never, because Eddie Kingston is a genius, I cannot recall a more realistic meltdown of, you've cornered me into this reaction, because Eddie Kingston understands mental anguish because he's actually lived it and he continues to live it. He knows that sarcasm is anger's ugly cousin, and one thing begets another. When he's doing the whole arms folded very sarcastically as Punk's trying to condescend him, and like Eddie Kingston's very sarcastically like reacting to CM Punk's material, and then because it's Eddie, he knows, right, if I can do sarcasm, it's not to really get thrown off. It starts with him just being sarcastic, and then that visual of him after trying to eat CM Punk's head, his tongue out. That's the most pissed off I've ever seen a human being ever. And it was actually a work because Eddie Kingston's such a genius.
You mentioned
that facial is I don't think I'll ever just vibrating of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I was just like ripping my shirt off. If there was a magic button on that television screen, a touch screen, just bear with me, this ridiculous thing I'm going to say. If it's like, right, touch screen, you can only watch this pay-per-view if you pay £500. You've got 5 seconds to make the decision. I would have just diving headbutted it. Just in case I couldn't press
the Super Bowl and just smashed the telly.
Just in case I couldn't press it strong enough. I want to, okay. I just jumped in and headbutted it. I went mad.
It's the best. It's maybe the best thing ever. Like
it was so great.
I watched the match yesterday, and I'm thinking, is the match the best thing ever? And it's like, maybe if you include it with a promo, maybe it's the best thing ever. Maybe Kingston
it was
Punk
the
the best thing ever.
ultimate pissy. Like that's how feuds actually happen.
Time to show them how it's done a bit, like wrestling at large.
Yeah.
Time to show a lot of wrestlers how to actually do this.
CM Punk being, I got on my, I lost 60 seconds on Rampage because of you, Eddie Kingston. Yeah. It's absolutely the thing he would care most about.
He is still. It was just blocked stunningly. They use that camera in the corner, so it starts off with them both in the corner, and Kingston is trying to remain on Punk's level, as you say, in terms of being calm. Punk remains like stood, he's almost like leaning, and then Kingston starts to pace, and it's just this corner thing's not working for you, Eddie. He's suddenly right in his face. As you mentioned, Savage and Jake with a Cobra. Kingston is trying to dislocate his jaw like a snake to bite CM Punk. I compare it to Bob.
He wanted to swallow his entire body.
Yeah, there are not enough other humans to get in the way of how much they want to fight. And again, when promo matches match, I think it does something more to it in hindsight as well. It was the perfect promo to build to the perfect match, and the match was the perfect match to back off of that.
To pay off that,
yeah. Like the two things, so simpatico. And in a way, and obviously there's a million things left on the table with Punk and AEW, but while a lot of people would say, oh, another go at Kingston would be nice, I don't think so. I think it's like...
They couldn't have said, like, all right, that's out of our
It's like the Smiths having no B-sides, isn't it? They got in, perfect catalogue, got out.
The characters got out of their system as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. Have you got a few more to round it off?
There's one I've just added to my list there, because you mentioned about Eddie Kingston. Kingston and Moxley, when Moxley mentioned Ruthie for the first time, and they come face to face on Dynamite.
He's got no right to look as genuinely pissed off as he does.
Like best mates, and they're just about to have a pay-per-view title fight, and
I'm going to destroy you.
Yeah,
oh my God.
They've set the stakes as win or die.
Eddie Kingston really. Last year, just to remind you, everyone, it was not made, but like he did a gimmick where he didn't want to talk on TV.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Look at the tools he has to offer.
Sort of anti-promotion of an Eddie Kingston, that isn't it? Really, like not using that. There's a man that finds hatred.
I think it's one of the low-key dumbest character shifts of all time.
Yeah.
And I'll stand by that.
Like, left for Ring of Honor or something, didn't he? Just to go and wrestle. Cody and Brody Lee, I think is my favourite AEW moment ever, because I think it's more of an angle than a match. I think it had the same energy last week with just how violent it was, and AEW, like, having it take place on the stage and having such an obvious... villain and a victim, as was the case with Cody and Brody. I just thought it was perfection, really. Like, I remember you were one of the staunchest defenders of Cody Rhodes winning more than a lot of people wanted him to, because in order to put these losses over,
look at Jericho.
Yeah, you got to stack the wins up. But what I loved about Cody's TNT title reign was that he was clearly stacking the wins up as a good cause. It was during a pandemic and he was getting people jobs.
Yeah,
he was beating people on Eddie Kingston, we just talked about, Ricky Starks. Sonny Kiss, one of the best matches against Cody Rhodes. There was examples of the Warhorse gotta go. I
didn't enjoy it, but I'm glad on a philosophical level that it happened.
That was the purpose of that whole run, wasn't it? And there's Cody Rhodes. The door is as open as we can possibly make it here in Florida, and I can't win the top title, but I'll make this the top title. And it was ugly ass belt as well, and even the ugly ass belt being smashed to pieces as part of the attack, and being dropped on Cody. Brody, I don't want this.
I don't want this
garbage.
It has
anymore.
to look beautiful for me.
Yeah, he patronising, condescending, boss-like figure. No, I'm the boss here. This is my dark order. I'm the exalted one in every sense of the word. It was, again, there's so much pandemic AEW you love because they had no right with the restrictions placed on them to create as much magic pro wrestling television.
What I loved about that angle as well was that the squash just looked like Cody could have been... He wrestled in exactly the same way as maybe one of Brody Lee's first squash match opponents. Just completely decisive.
The difficulty levels were set differently.
It was strange because it wasn't... The beating wasn't that bad in terms of did he even bleed? Bled at the end.
Might have bled at the end. I don't think he bled in the match.
It was just in the match.
He was physically overwhelmed.
It was. And what I liked about it is as soon as when they stretched him, it had that jarring. You know how in wrestling and most things it's fairly innocuous or relatively innocuous things, like the thing that really mess you up.
Yeah.
It's why is he in a stretcher? That doesn't look like a stretcher job. Why is he in a stretcher? I just thought that was really, really, really well done.
The night where Hangman Page grabs the leg in the gauntlet.
Don't, because I'll talk about it for 15 minutes.
The Young Bucks then kick him out of the Elite, throw the drink in his face, and you're left with the visual of Hangman Page looking at the broken mirror. It's an all-time storytelling night, and again, I remember watching it trapped in the house in the summer of 2020.
I was how do they get away from doing FTR versus the Young Bucks in a match? All right, the best solution of all time. Great. This company's the best of all time. This is the best company of all time. That's how I was feeling at the time.
You had an advancement of the story with the pulling of the leg. You had a really significant turning point in the relationship with the Young Bucks, and you had it's kind of all my favorite things in wrestling because I've not had to mention a match here. The visual of him in the mirror becomes one of those iconic Hangman Page visuals.
Yeah.
When they were just pulling them out their ass every other week, for the video packages that were to follow. It's a bit of a low-key one, but I just remember thinking everybody is exactly where they need to be here. Christian Cage turning on Jungle Boy and then telling his family off. Yeah. At the end of that Dynamite.
You raised a piece of...
Just so nasty. And it was there it is. There's... you knew it was coming, and that was what was fun about it. It was never about the when... It was about the how, and the way that he did it was just particularly cruel.
Such an arsehole. Yeah.
It's there he is.
So hard to make adult wrestling fans feel something. Well, this one anyway.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching it going, you arsehole.
And this one, because I saw it on X a couple of weeks ago, and it was posted with the context of it wasn't an account having a dig at AEW, but it was just like, where have these crowds gone? And it follows one of my favourite ever Dynamite matches while we're talking Dynamite 250. Punk's return at Quake by the Lake. Proper building going insane. Baby's getting tossed in the air. He saves the day, and then immediately it's folded into John Moxley, like doing the shoulder check.
Yeah.
And the two of them are back, and there's going to be a massive, like the biggest title fight AEW has is on because Punk's still the champion. Moxley doesn't respect him as the champion. He gives him the finger straight in the face. But even like the way, like Punk knows how to like position himself for the save, just stepping back from Sammy Guevara, I think it was, and just decking him. As like the Jericho Appreciation Society, you just get like, they're just pinballing around the ring, and Jericho and Moxley have just had this epic Dynamite.
It was unbelievable.
It's the Dynamite feeling when everything is just clicking.
Did you see a bit of Schadenfreude here? Chris Jericho chased the Dragon against Joe last week on Dynamite, because if you remember, he did the Walls of Jericho on Mox in Quake by the Lake. And it's just this absolute, the definition of a match that just clicks. It's like, well, this is awesome. This is the best possible version of this match it could be. And then he does the Walls to Mox at Quake by the Lake, and it goes through the entire commercial, and everyone's like, come on, Moxley, break it, break it, break it. Did it against Joe last week, and everyone was like, well, why's it going on this time?
Let go. Do something else.
Yeah. Like that is a very, like a symmetrical bit of poetry about the decline of Le Champion.
That's what happens when you wrestle 250 Wednesdays in a row, Sidge.
Le Champion he's had some pretty great angles. I mean, the parody video.
Oh, all-timer stuff.
The parody video.
Stuff. Is it Sammy that kisses him on the head?
Yeah, it kisses him on the cheek like they do the Cody Brandy.
Chris Jericho is the youngest AEW champion of all time.
Chris Jericho's greatness is like the breadsticks at the Olive Garden. Unlimited.
Yeah. Great times.
It's, in my opinion, the best run of weekly episodic television in the history of US cable. Just my opinion. What have we missed out in the comments below? Let us know. What do you think is the best AEW angle of all time? You can either let us know in the comments below, or if you're an audio listener, under the post on X for this podcast. And whilst you're on there, you can follow us all at WhatCulture WWE. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at Sidgwick. We don't have anything else today on the feeds.
No.
We are balls deep in wacky summer.
Hopefully tomorrow.
Depending on the condition of Adam Wilborn's mouth, you might get a review tomorrow. I personally am off. I'm gutted. What a week. Dynamite 250.
Look, if it's class, we'll find time for a love letter like this podcast.
Indeed.
We will find the time.
Indeed. So stick around. I know you've been very, very patient. We're very, very appreciative, given that we've had a very sort of like lax, quite frankly, podcast schedule. We've all got holidays to take in the summer. Thank you for sticking with us and being patient. We are trickling back, much like the Puro wrestler coming back. We're not in complete form yet, but that just builds the anticipation.
Impression vest.
That's just goddamn good character work. Thank you for being patient with us. We really appreciate it. And we will see you soon.